Hello, everyone, and welcome to Coaching Kristy Season 2, Episode 6 here only on Deuces Crack. This is Andrew Beluga Whale Sideman, and with me is the wonderful Kristy Arnett. How are you, Kristy?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing very well. I'm a little bummed out. I'm recording this right now. The main event just started, the World Series. I'm bummed out that I'm not able to play in it this year, but I'm hoping that by the time that this video hits the air, everyone will have their money back and life will be grand and wonderful. You know what I mean, Kristy?
I do know what you mean.
So today we have 4 tables of 50-cent $1 like we did last time. This is sort of a limit. Kristy, you've played a fair amount of 50-cent $1 online, although live has been more your thing lately, especially since Black Friday, yeah?
Yes.
And the idea we're going to try to do today is we're going to try to move one step closer to doing maybe the next 2 videos at $1, $2, and see if we can sort of challenge ourselves to see some more aggressive spots. Today's video is submitted by Fresh David, who I'm going to assume his name is David. And so thank you, Fresh David, for this video. It's on Winamax, which is obviously some super awesome, obscure European thingamajig. So without further ado, I will roll it, and we're playing in euros, so I guess it's really the same. It doesn't really matter, I don't think. But so Kristy, how is the live play been going during the series? Have you had a chance to play much? Give me a quick update.
Actually, since we shot the last video, I haven't been able to play much at all. I did play 2 tournaments. I played a 1K and then the ladies events, which I felt really good in the 1K. I felt like I played really good. And then the ladies event, I just pretty much punted and played terrible and was just I don't know. I was distracted and annoyed the whole time, and I don't know. I just played terribly, but.
Well, first of all, don't worry about it, because everyone, first of all, tournaments are the most brutal thing of all time. But, busting out of a tournament, depending on how you bust out of a tournament, isn't so bad. I'm not going to spend too much time talking about tournament stuff today, but just if you bust by being aggressive, if you bust by, it's much better to bust in big pots in a blaze of glory than it is to bust in I whittled down and then put my 10 big blinds in as a favorite, like what Phil Hellmuth does usually. But so I want to ask you a question about these pocket threes up in the upper left table. This is kind of an interesting spot here because we have a guy sitting with 60 big blinds to start the hand, and we're in the small blind with threes, and he makes it 5x. What are your thoughts here? What do you think we should do?
Well, him making it 5x, he's obviously a fish, and obviously since he's sitting with 60 big blinds. But when we play good players, I think that I usually tend to 3-bet them when they are raising on the button, because it's very hard to play threes out of position, and usually you're just gonna check fold because you never hit a set, and if you're beat, you have 2 outs and no equity if you're gonna carry out a bluff. But against a fish with another fish in the big blind, I think that flatting is okay, because I don't know, fish don't usually tend to squeeze a ton, and I guess I don't really know how many hands do we have on the guy on the left?
Not very few
Nothing?
hands on
Okay.
either of them. I want to say 7 on the guy on the left and 2 on the guy on the right. So these are fresh faces.
Okay. Well, I don't think it's I think that flatting is maybe okay, or maybe just I don't really like 3-betting though, because he's shorter, and because I think it could be easier to play out of position too.
Yeah, I think one of the things that makes it difficult for us to play out of position is the fact that people are aggressive with their equity, or even aggressive and they might not even have that much equity. So if we're up against a good player and we call with threes and we're out of position and they're going to barrel a lot, we pretty much either need to start making some crazy hero calls or flop some sets. And unfortunately, because our equity is pretty bad when we miss, hero calls is not a great option. I call this the 6-7 offsuit test. if your hand is a flip with 6-7 offsuit, like it's probably not a great thing to call out of position with. If the person's aggressive. But if these guys are going to be kind of fishy, passivey, let us know what they have kind of people, it's not a huge deal to call pre-flop and then check fold the flop because like when they're aggressive on the flop, it's much more likely they have a big hand. Whereas like if a reg's aggressive on the flop, then that could mean anything. So yeah, there's a few good table dynamic things you picked up on. They're not full stack, but they're deep enough that we could set mine. We have another fish on the left, which is obviously a huge influence in our situation. But sort of the really important thing in my mind is that when we're up against a reg, there's a lot of opportunities for collection of aggressive dead money. Like there's a lot of opportunities for like they can 4-bet and we can then shove over top. Or they can call and then we could barrel multiple streets. Like there's a lot of things we can do to get them, to move them off of things that either have equity against us or maybe even are a better hand than us. But in these situations, there really isn't. It isn't the same way. So this is one of those spots where, as it is right now, I would call. And if I was against a reg, I think 3-betting is better. And a lot of people say, well, what happens if you get deep? Like, let's say we're like 200 big blinds deep, against someone. Do we still 3-bet, our threes there? That king deuce offsuit on the button there, we just fold it quickly. What do you think about that?
I'm sorry, I didn't see where. Oh, at the same table.
Yeah, same table.
I would definitely still open just because if the big blind is a reg, then
Looks like a reg.
Then they're folding most of the time anyway, and you can make it small. And then if the fish calls, obviously we're still playing in position, and king deuce isn't so bad.
Yeah, it's not so bad. And at the end of the day, like, we're not super unhappy playing against either of them. If the reg calls, like, we're just going to give up a whole bunch. But if the fish calls, we should be able to c-bet or value bet, like, pretty appropriately throughout. So I think that a lot of players, even at, especially rather at smaller stakes, sort of are still playing with kind of a hand chart. You know what I'm saying? Like, king deuce off, bad. King 10 off, good. Right? And they're not like, they don't think about why one thing might be good, other thing's bad. Obviously, we'd rather have king 10 than king deuce, but if king deuce is still good, not only would we make money on it, but it also makes our king 10 better. Because as we get looser, we start to create image, and then image leads us to less fold equity, and then less fold equity leads to more thin value bets, and then thin value bets means king 10 is more valuable. Did you follow that?
Yeah.
that was a lot of stuff. I was gonna play the tape again, but we were gonna talk about like what happens when you have like a pocket pair and you're deep. People say, if you 3-bet and they 4-bet, can you still or should you still raise, shove over the top if you're if you're deep? Well, the real question is, what is your opponent 4-betting you with? If their range becomes wider but like less for value, like if they're afraid of getting jacks in pre-flop, 200 big blinds, so they don't 4-bet it, then it might still be good to 3-bet and then 5-bet shove like pocket threes even when deep, depending on what your opponent's range looks like, right? You have to remember that that depth changes for both people. So obviously, like, we're not super happy getting threes in, 200 big blinds deep, but by the same token, they're not super happy getting like tens in most of the time against us super deep. So their range starts to get affected. It starts to be, include less things that are scary to us. Whereas like 100 big blinds, somebody might just say, all right, I'm going to 4-bet tens and get it in. Because they're not afraid. But few people ever 4-bet tens when deep.
Yeah.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So the depth changes their range in such a way that it might still be good to just keep these, these aggressive lines. And usually the reason that we sort of talk ourselves out of these things is because we're like, oh my god, I don't want to lose a gigantic pot with pocket threes. But the truth is that if our opponent's range is so unbalanced, and our equity with threes is not that good, given that, ace king is our most likely opponent, then or our equity's not that bad rather. Then sometimes we need to get over that sort of like, I'm afraid of losing like a 400 big blind pot with pocket threes against pocket aces. Because if you had pocket kings, you would still lose them against pocket aces.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And you wouldn't feel so bad about the kings. You'd be like, oh, what a cooler. But we have a tendency to view the threes differently. Whereas, when somebody's range becomes much more polarized, the threes and the kings start to look a lot more alike. If all that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. It's funny because when we first started doing Coaching Kristy 1 and I was getting to understand why it's okay to be so aggressive and to be so and it took me the argument for like sometime or at some point all pairs become the same. I was like, oh, all right.
Yeah, well, it's also like the people have a tendency to view equity as a linear graph. Like twos are just as distant from threes as kings are from aces. That it's like each one is just like an equidistant notch on the peg. Like twos go to threes, threes go to fours, fours go to fives, and all the gaps are the same. And really what you find is that there's aces, which are like the premium club, and then there's like kings through jacks, which are like really kings and queens, we'll say, are like the pool membership only at the country club. And then tens through deuces are just like, you're a guest. They don't have great, like, they all can be treated roughly the same. And the only reason why that would ever be different is if our opponents started playing things differently. So, like, if our opponents start 4-betting and calling it off with pocket eights, well, then pocket nines get way better, but pocket threes get way worse. Thankfully, most of our opponents haven't yet got the memo that 4-bet calling with pocket eights against players like us is fantastic. I'm hoping that they don't apply this. Well, I guess I can't even play poker right now, so who cares?
Sad.
But you see, it's we have to get away from some of these mental hurdles that I would say probably the person that I've been around who's been the sort of most influential in sort of watching this is Ariel, as Foxwood Fiends. I was around him in this during the series last year, and I watched him play some online poker, and every time there is just the slightest edge, he takes it, he pushes it, He'll 3-barrel even if it's like a 60% likely to be called or 70% likely to be called if it's still a plus EV 3-barrel because he just has no fear. And getting over some of those like things like, oh, I can't 3-bet this because he might shove, or I can't 4-bet this because he might shove, or I can't 5-bet shove these threes because what if he has aces and all those things, and you have to like get over it.
Mm-hmm.
And the fastest way to get over it, by the way, is just to do it.
Yeah.
The only thing that really matters at the end of the day is your win rate. And so I will say this, shoving those things and getting involved in a lot of flips. When I first started doing this, I ran 40 buy-ins under EV and like right away, which is sick, but it was just like, I just kept on losing flips. And I was like, wow, maybe, on the one hand, I was like, maybe this thing sucks. Then I kept on doing it, and pretty soon I'm crazy high win rate from doing this because I start winning the flips, they keep on folding a lot of the time, and no one did the right adjustments, which was to change the hands they were 4-betting with, and to flat more in different types of hands.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do. But the problem with live is that you can lose a huge, like, 450 BB pot doing the right thing, but for it to catch up with you as far as variance goes or as far as running better in those spots takes so long. And it's like,
well, on the one hand, yeah, it takes a long time, just because you don't see that many hands. But on the other hand, your win rate live should be significantly higher.
Mm-hmm.
And so one thing that I would stress for people who are like getting to live scene and all that is a lot of people tend to put away their 3-bet button live. They see these deep stacks and they say like, oh, I'm in position and I have like a weakish hand or whatever. So wow, that's perfect timing for a helicopter. Really? This has never happened before. Sorry about that, everyone. I was gonna say that people put away their 3-bet button and they do things. They say, oh, I'm just going to flat this Jack 10 suited, or I'm going to flat this, Ace 8 suited or whatever in position, because they see the deep stacks. They know they have these big player advantage. They see all these fish behind, and they're like, I better wait, and I'll get value better post flop or whatever. One of the fastest ways to just grind out cash in a live game is just to do your old 3-bet C-bet.
Mm-hmm.
It works amazingly. Nobody has ever 4-bet in the history of live poker without pocket aces.
It's not quite like that right now in Vegas.
Well, right now in Vegas, especially when you have all of like the internet players who are showing up and they are like a little bit familiar with this, sure. But once the series dies down, and you'll know who to do this against.
Yeah.
Like Let me rephrase that. No one over the age of 30 has ever 4-bet.
Yeah, well, still nobody 4-bets without aces in 1-2 or 1-3, but like the 2-5 games at least, the deeper ones too, with the bigger buy-ins are
Sure.
not like
I
that
mean,
anymore.
obviously, like young kid in hoodie looking bored. Okay, he can probably 4-bet you, and so
Yeah,
you
for
have to
sure.
treat him like someone
Oh
that's
yeah, and
good.
it's so obvious. They all have basketball shorts on and baseball hats and smell awful with backpacks and stuff. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. It's not. They don't all smell bad, but they.
That's what I always say. If you're at the series or if you're playing a live game, just always be careful about the kid who looks bored. Kid who looks bored is like your most dangerous enemy because he's bored because he's used to playing 500 hands in an hour, and this is just killing him that he has to do this.
Yeah.
But so no. The point that I was going to make though is that, I stress a lot of 3-bet C-bet for smaller stakes games.
Yeah.
And the sort of the model that I base it after is when I played like mid-stakes games, which used to be a lot softer, and I just did that.
Mhm.
I talk about that all the time. But live games still maintain like it's kind of amazing how a live game could still maintain a lot of like the same basic atmosphere, the same game dynamics that a small stakes online game might have.
Mhm.
And I've even played a significant amount of like 5-10 and 10-20 in Las Vegas, and honestly, you're gonna find 9-handed tables that have 5 or 6 fish, and that's even it's 5-10. I mean, the regulars are okay, but regulars, we've talked about this before, are rarely that different.
Mhm.
Like a 24-20 is not so different from like a 21-18 or whatever.
Mhm.
They're all that's like 3% of hands. Their general game plan is roughly the same. So yeah, the regulars would be a little bit tougher, but you can play as well as you possibly can against them and just not really worry too much about it as long as you're just reaping from the fish. But the point that I was really trying to get across is, it's tempting in a live game to sort of back off your preflop aggression, especially since people tend to make their preflop raises really big.
Mhm.
Right? They tend to it's like, a 2-5 game, the guy opens to like 35 or something.
Mhm.
Right? So you're like, oh, well, I can't 3-bet this. But when you realize that the guy, majority of the time has something like King Jack, and he calls your 3-bet out of position and hopes to spike.
Mhm.
And you realize that and you can just start printing money. But a lot of players sort of get intimidated out of it.
Yeah. Can we back up a little bit on the bottom right?
Sure.
There was he was under the. Okay, a little bit farther. Well, first he had Queen Jack under the gun, and so I think it was just.
I think it's probably this hand here.
Yeah. So.
He folds. Oh, he snap folds it. I didn't even see that.
And with like 2 obvious fish in the blinds, even if you're under the gun, that's still a raise.
Oh, this is, first of all, it's 5-handed, so we're going to call this mid position.
Okay.
The problem with under the gun is really we should be counting from the button,
Okay.
not from the blinds.
Uh-huh.
You know what I mean? This is something that always bothers me. They say, oh, well, you're under the gun here. Well, you're not under the gun here. I mean, technically you're the first to act, but you're 3 from the button, which we'll call the hijack,
Mhm.
or mid position.
Mhm.
So like he's in the hijack there. But just alone the hand is good enough that you should be opening it pretty much regardless of who's behind you.
Right. And then this hand, like we talked about this last week, the order of the raise and call,
Mhm.
which this would be a perfect squeeze spot, right?
With the ace queen.
No, at the bottom right, he had ace 6 in the big blind, and Lachati raised and.
So reg raises, fish calls, perfect. Yeah, I missed both of these because I was talking about live play. Who cares about that? No, but you're exactly right. That's like this is the textbook spot. You squeeze there, your 19-14 is getting out of the way all the time. You're seeing a flop against this guy. He's going to fold to a ton of our C-bets anyway, but occasionally the board's going to come down like ace 5-4, and we're going to get like a whole bunch of money in against his, 7-5 or, pocket 10s or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. And also, do you notice that it seems, and maybe it's just been a long time since I've played online, but everybody's raising like 4x or 5x.
Well, I think that's just because apparently on the Winamax network there's just a whole bunch of fish.
Must be nice.
Yeah, exactly right. If that's like sort of, and it could just be because you play a lot of live poker, and so you see everyone making it 5x all the time this year. You're seeing that again. But no, I think that when somebody makes it bigger pre-flop, it's almost always wrong. Let me rephrase that. Unless there's a big fish involved, it's basically always wrong to go bigger pre-flop. Like that king four suited should have been isolated, obviously. But these are sort of things that we're all comfortable with. On the upper right table, we folded king four on the button with a fish limper. It's like, it should be automatic. Interesting. I wonder what he's going to do here with the queen jack suited. We'll get back to talking about like, what I was about to say. I think. What do you think we should do? Should we fold here? Should we call? Should we four bet? Upper left table?
Yeah, I don't think, well, we're not four betting unless, like, we're turning our hand into a bluff, but, I don't, his range for three betting, usually in these positions, his range is pretty strong, which we're not really doing that great against because, like, obviously ace queen and things like that.
Sure. Queen jack is sort of an overrated equity hand.
Yeah, but if we were deeper, I think it would be okay to call and play in position because the three bet's not huge, but I would just fold.
Yep, that looks good to me too. People tend to fall in love with these types of hands because they look so pretty, but I think that's good. Especially the guys 45-15, vaguely passive. I think that's okay. What I was going to say though was about bet sizing. People make it really, really large. Unless there's a big fish involved that you can get a lot of like passive dead money against, making it really large is always a mistake because if someone else is good, if we think that we're better than them, and someone else is good, then what we would want to do is we want to keep the stacks large relative to the pot, right? This is just one of the many reasons why I really believe that if there's two regs in the blinds, like we should be min raising our whole range on the button. Just because like they're not going to make a whole lot of mistakes, so the best value we get comes from stealing the blinds, and when they do come along, like we'd like to have as much room as possible in position to operate. So it's usually rare. I mean, it's better to make it larger, like under the gun, but like it's not a huge difference because people are still going to play roughly the same ranges, and we're not going to make it so large because the benefit of winning the blinds isn't so great that we'd want to make it like 10x pre-flop. So I would just say in general, when people are making it 5x or something like that for no reason, assume that they don't really understand why they're doing it. They're just doing it. And that usually is a good window into thinking, all right, well, this person is probably contributing a lot of dead money. They're going to sort of act like a bad, aggressive player. So I would honestly start 3-betting them a lot, people who make it big like that. Anyway, they have this ace-king down here on the bottom. We raise, and this guy who's just sat down at the table shows us a 3-bet. What's your default here against someone you have no read against?
My default would be to flat and play in position.
Tell me why that's better than 4-betting.
Because I think that when you, like, I feel like there has to be some kind of dynamic to 4-bet someone, and have them either call or 5-bet ship with worse hands.
Yeah. Perfect. Right there, you just say, you strike out value as a reason. If we are 4-betting here, it's like we're usually expecting him to just fold. And when he doesn't fold, like, it's okay, but not great. Right?
Yeah.
And that doesn't really strike me as like much of a, as value as it does like a semi-bluff. Right? We're trying to bluff him off of things that have equity like queen jack, and, we're trying to, we're okay if he comes along with pocket queens. Seems to me that a thin semi-bluff with ace-king is probably less good than let him come along with all kinds of everything and give us money. Just seems that way. So I think you're right. I think that a lot of players default to 4-bet because it's easier. They don't have to deal with a flop. But I think that calling is better.
Okay.
And then a lot of players get lost on a flop like this. Tell me what goes through your head when you see this flop.
That nothing changes though, that I still,
yeah.
Like, wait, what just happened? The dude c-bet.
The guy c-bet, we call
Okay.
him.
Yeah, I would do the same.
Yeah, a lot of players get in their head here, they say, oh, well, I didn't hit an ace or king, so I'm probably behind. Well, simply put, if you needed, or like, if you, how do I say this? If you were behind before, you're still behind. If you're ahead before, you're still ahead.
Yeah.
unless he has the random like ace six or something like that, you're in general like you're up against somebody that's going to represent things like aces and kings, right? Now this is where blockers come into play and are actually quite significant. When somebody starts barreling here, like they might even, this jack sort of is a bad card for us, but let's say the turn card was like a 6 or a 7, right?
Mm-hmm.
If he barrels again, what is he really repping? A lot of players might not even go, for more streets with like jacks or 10s there for fear that they're outkicked.
Mm-hmm.
Or someone has a higher pair. And so, in this sense, like, when somebody then bets again on the turn here, especially if they go turn and river, they're oftentimes like representing aces or kings.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to remember that and like only those, like not really queens or jacks as much. Queens still, but maybe not jacks or lower. The point is that when you block the things that they're representing, it becomes just much more likely that they're straight bluffing.
Mm-hmm.
Now, obviously, the jack's a bad card for us because if our opponent has like a depolarized range, they have a lot of broadways in them, so it hits a lot of jacks. Obviously, if he has pocket jacks, he's going to stay aggressive now. So it's not a great card for us. And so this is one of those things where if he barreled again, what would you do? Let me ask you that before I say what I would do.
Well, I think though, not only, because like if he's 3-betting a depolarized range, which most people are to begin with, then like he has tons of jacks, and if we're assuming that people are not not super, if we have to assume that unknowns are like not super aggressive and they're more, then I think that he would just like c-bet give up. So if he barrels again, I would just fold.
Mm-hmm. Good. Now let's say we know him and he's aggressive.
Well,
I'm putting you on the spot here. I'm making this difficult. Like here's a way to explain this. You open ace king, I 3-bet you in the small blind. You say I'm not going to 4-bet because I know Andrew likes to shove like pairs, so either I'm flipping or I'm owned. So like I'm just going to flat. Sounds good against me. I bet the flop. You call. Turn card comes. I bet again.
Well, I guess like you can either call, or you can like if you're thinking of calling a bet on the river, I think that you can raise on the turn too.
Well, so when would we decide to raise, and when would calling be better? First of all, I like that against me. You're not trying to fold.
Yeah.
Because I just have too many things that aren't a 6 or a jack or pocket aces.
Yeah.
So how, like, what would make us want to raise the turn? What would make us want to call the turn?
I think like any Broadway card obviously is okay, but because if you happen to be barreling with like a small pair that you 3-bet against us, because just like us, we would 3-bet from the small blind, then you have some fold equity now because So if it was like another low card, it might seem weird that you didn't maybe raise the flop or 4-bet with like a higher pair
with like ace or something. Yeah. Well, so let me offer another. That's good actually. You actually might have some fold equity here as a bluff, and essentially what we are is we're trying to bluff. If you're in this spot, you're trying to bluff me off of some kind of equity. Mm-hmm. So let me offer two things. If you think that I'm likely to barrel all the way through, just bluff it from here to the from the flop to the river. Calling down is just best.
Okay.
Right? Because most of the time things that I have don't get there, and you're almost certainly right. And I'm sure someone will probably help out by doing the math on this, but you're almost certainly right just calling down. But here's the one thing that people get wrong, which is that they're up against somebody who's kind of aggressive but not that aggressive, and they say, oh, I bet he's bluffing a lot on the turn, so they call. But they don't ask themselves, is he bluffing a lot on the river?
Mm-hmm.
Because where people get owned here is they call the turn, and the person has, let's say, let's give the guy like Queen 10 of clubs. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
The guy with the Queen 10 of clubs might, less aggressive guy, might never bluff the river. He might bet his 2 streets and be like, oh, I bricked out on a 2 of spades, so I'm done.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And against a guy like that, you realize that you're just giving them a massive share of the pot when you flat there and they don't barrel.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're this is sort of the idea of why people got in the habit of barreling with equity. The reason why we bet with equity is because we don't expect our opponents to raise.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so the whole idea of betting with equity and then giving up when we miss is like a great idea against sort of people who have taken a passive self-protective line. So a lot of people do what we're talking about here with Ace King, where they say, you know, I think he's bluffing, so I'm just going to call. It's like, oh, I think he's bluffing, so I'm just going to call. And the river card comes along, and then if the guy checks, they're like, oh, he was bluffing, I check and give up, and they view that as a win, right? Well, the not folding part was correct, but the danger of it is then not only do we just give him the pot when he hits a flush on or a pair on the river. So there's that, but there's also the times when the river card comes the king or ace of clubs or something like that, and we call it all off with a worst hand and stuff like that, right? These are simply things that can be avoided if we have a good idea that our opponent's not that aggressive and we can just put it in on the turn. So this is something that I always watch for, by the way. If you're in these spots, this is a great thing to take a note of, where it's like, okay, this guy barreled, I called, I thought he was aggressive, he barreled the turn, I called again, thought he was aggressive. River card, let's say we call this, and the river card is a, deuce offsuit, and he checks, and we check back, and he's got queen 10 of clubs, right? I would immediately put a note down there that says, didn't barrel river as bluff.
Right.
Because now, when he does barrel the river, first of all, we know he's not bluffing that much. And secondly, we know that we can find usually a good spot to put in a turn raise there against him because he's going to barrel the turn with equity. Oh my God, I didn't even know deuce of spades was coming. That's amazing. That's incredible. I'm so pleased with myself. So this is a perfect example right there. That's a perfect example. He bets the flop. Or actually, I guess the turn went check, didn't it? I think I screwed up the action there.
Oh.
I was just so excited that the deuce of spades was still up after I had used it as my demo card for the whole time. Okay, so the turn card comes. I think this guy checks. Okay. So he checks. The guy checks there. What do you think we should do with ace king here when the guy checks?
I would bet because, well, I think that, the pot is already, 40 bigs, and I think that we can get him to fold lots of, not like a ton of equity, but like any equity that he has in the hand. And I don't think he's going to check the turn and then bluff the river. So that would be.
Yeah, well, I would say first and foremost, I just think he's given up.
Yeah.
When people take this is like a very common I'm giving up line. 90+% of the time when someone c-bets the flop and then checks the turn, they're done. Right? You're always kind of surprised here when you bet and the guy calls and you're like, huh? But the point that I'm trying to make, or I would be trying to make with this, is that when somebody gives up, you should make them fold. There's not a lot of value. You're not going to get called by a lot of worse things. But we do win a pretty big pot, and the guy doesn't have a free chance to hit his 3-outer. Right? Yeah, obviously the 3-outer is mitigated by the time that, when we hit an ace, he maybe stacks off or something. But, we're not always dominating him. Like, he may have things like queen 10. He may have, if he has a polarized range, he may have something like 8-9 suited or something. Right? So a lot of players, again, sort of get in the habit of being passive here and taking the self-protective, I want to get the showdown, like if he checks, I'm going to check. If he bets, I'm going to call. See what I'm saying? Like every choice that we're sort of presented with, we're very much tempted to take this passive, I'm going to protect myself kind of line. But when he checks, you should bet. And when he bets, if we're not going to fold, our options, the only time we'd want to flat is if we thought he was going to barrel it off on the river. So against me, flatting might be great. Against some of the other pros here, it is probably best to just flat because if I have the queen 10 of clubs here and the river card's like a king, well, it's not close. I'm all in.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so you can get a lot more value against someone like that, but at smaller stakes games and live games for that matter, that doesn't really happen. You don't really see the crazy epic 3-barrel and a 3-bet pot, stone bluff as often. So I would say we should bet here to basically bluff him off his equity. And if he had bet and we weren't going to fold, in this case I think folding's good. I think we'd sort of agreed that folding's good in this case. But in many cases when it's not good, we shouldn't be. We should at least be considering raising, and we should. The important question is, what is he going to do on the next street? This is something that I'm sort of working on figuring out called street projection, which is like it's trying to like figure out a framework for deciding like what's going to happen next. Poker I oftentimes use as an analogy with chess, and like great chess players are looking into the future. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
They're not just thinking about what their what their move is. They're thinking about what does that create for moves down the road.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is something that we're gonna start working on to elevate our game to the next level of saying, all right, it's like the question of should we check raise the flop? Let's say we call a raise in the blinds and we flop a big hand. Should we check raise or lead? Right? We already start this by saying, well, if I check, he's likely to bet. So I'm going to check, let him bet, and then I'm going to raise for value. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So we already know that we have there's a certain condition based on like one thing. If we check, then this happens. If he bets, then this happens. Right? But we can extend that. We can go further with that, and we can say, well, if he checks and if I check and he bets and I check raise and he calls and then I bet, what does he do?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Or if I say and I bet and he calls and I bet again, what does he do?
Right.
Or maybe if I check raise the flop and he calls and then I check the turn, does he check? Does he bet? What does he do if I check raise again? There's all what they call in chess, they call them trees, the decision trees,
Mm-hmm.
where every action leads to like a series of possible reactions. And in that case, chess and poker are very much alike. Because in chess, there's always like only a few best moves that you can choose from between. In poker, you're already limited to like a few moves.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But so I guess I'm kind of rambling right now. Sorry.
Huh.
But the point that I'm trying to make is that we can actually start getting in the habit of trying to predict what's going to happen later. And that's this idea of should we flat or should we raise the turn? It depends very highly on what we think is going to happen if we do flat.
Mm-hmm.
If we do flat and somebody never bluffs, they're winning the river. We're winning the turn, sure, right?
Mm-hmm.
But they're winning the river. If we raise the turn, well, we're still winning the turn, and there is no river. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. This has been just wonky. It's a lot of like chess speak. You guys can tell I've been playing chess with friends on my phone. Right? It's true. I spent like half the day yesterday Wikipediaing chess openings, and I decided there's way too many to even possibly get started. So. I'm gonna stick to the one game that I actually know a little bit about. This bottom right table, we have King 10. The guy min races and we flat. Even though he's really short, he's got 20 big blinds. Against this type of guy, I might make a small re-raise.
Mm-hmm.
Just because they're still likely to call. It wouldn't even be so bad as a raise big enough to commit ourselves because like that guy's a 44-19 over 200 hands. Like he's plenty likely to get it in with just any two cards if he's tilting in low.
Yeah.
And we see what happens there. He c-bets a king, queen board and then gives up. Like I think that clearly he has some kind of a range.
Yeah.
I think that we can get away with that.
There was a hand a while ago up on the top right. This Quedic.
What do we have?
Quedictor. We had kings.
Oh yeah, that was back here a little bit ago.
And so this guy to our left, he's a big fish, I think. Oh wait.
This hand, yeah, right?
Yeah. So he 3-bet pre.
Yep.
And
then this guy flats.
Yeah.
Wow, he is a 95-58 over 20 hands. So he folded once.
So on a flop like this, like he ended up checking, and then I don't know. I just feel like against a huge fish, I think a bet is better, or not folding to just one bet, especially a pot-sized bet on the turn.
Against this guy, we can't possibly fold kings ever.
Yeah.
He makes a big pot-sized bet on the turn. We have to realize here, this guy is playing 100% of hands.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like we sort of get scared of an ace because people who are playing tighter have ranges that include a lot of aces.
Mm-hmm.
They say, oh, well, too much of his range is ace related.
Yeah.
In this case, all aces, every ace offsuit and suited probably makes up, and this is just me guessing from when I did like tournament math, but like I'm guessing that all aces combined make like make like 10% of hands.
Mm-hmm.
Something like that. So between that 10% that beats us and then like, let's say random 2 pairs and sets and stuff is another, let's say 5%. Right?
Mm-hmm.
That's like 15% of the time we're hosed. And 85% of the time we are dominating.
Yeah.
This is one of those things where you don't realize how epic when someone is playing that loose. Like, it really is. You just can't. This is what I say against bad aggressive players. You just can't fold stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And this guy would seem to be like maybe along those lines where it's just like, you just can't fold stuff because in the event that they make a better hand than you, that's just good for them because they're playing so many bad hands.
Yeah.
I mean, it's literally not unlikely that we check call there on the turn, and then the river, we check call again on the river and get shown like 6 deuce offsuit.
Mm-hmm.
That's not an unlikely thing. Now, I want to talk about the bet actually, because you have 2 lines you can take here. You can either bet to get money in the pot, or you can check to induce action. My preferred option is to bet flop and then check to induce action, because I think a lot of these guys like. If they have any piece of anything, or just even if they're just like playing back, they'll like they will wait till the turn before they start going nuts. So I think that you're probably right that betting is obviously you can get value from all pairs and straight draws and stuff. There are not that many straight draws given that we have kings, but like I think a bet is probably slightly better. But I don't really mind the check here, just because of like I said before, there's so much air. Relative to his range, to the good stuff in his range, that like inducing action actually in this situation starts to become pretty awesome. One of the reasons why people don't really feel comfortable inducing action against regs, where like if you have kings on like an ace 10-5 board against a reg, and you check and the guy bets, you're like, oh god, you know what I mean? You're like, what do I do? The reason why is because our equity isn't so good there, so we feel uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
This is part of my classic theory of if you feel uncomfortable, it's because your equity is not very good.
Mm-hmm.
It's an easy theory to remember. And in this case, like if I check that board, I am not feeling uncomfortable ever there. I feel insanely comfortable the entire way through.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so so against those people that like where equity's not that good, I tend to prefer to bet, collect dead money, get thin value and stuff like that. It just seems better and easier to bet. Against sort of a reg who's maybe got a little bit of a sane, stronger range. But against this guy, checking is not a bad idea.
Okay. As long as you're not going to fold.
Yes, you can't fold anywhere in there. You have pocket kings against a guy playing 100% of hands. If you have a deck of cards near you, deal out pocket kings, then deal out any 2 cards, and then run flop. and you'll be excited at how often your kings win. And that's really how you have to treat it. Against somebody who's taking every hand all the way, your absolute value, your hand chart matters.
Mm-hmm.
The 10-8 suited on the button there with a fish in the blinds, that should be a no-brainer. 2 fish really should be a no-brainer open. Or 8 deuce suited, I think I say 10-8 suited?
Yeah.
8 deuce suited. It was 8 deuce suited, but sometimes my mind just gets scrambled, Kristy. I've been away from the game for too long.
Yeah.
It's killing me. But a lot of players get confused about this idea of checking to induce action. I tend to say in general it's not great.
Mm-hmm.
Unless the person is unreasonably aggressive and unbalanced.
Mm-hmm.
And in that spot, that guy seems to strike it pretty clearly as unreasonably aggressive and unbalanced. But like if you check the flop against me on an ace 10-6 board, it's not going to be an easy time for you.
Mm-hmm.
Because like sometimes I may choose to barrel 3 streets. Other times, I'll definitely barrel 3 streets with, for value. So in that sense, people might say, well, shouldn't I check to induce with ace jack there if you're going to bet 3 streets with ace 8? Right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, you could also just bet 3 streets with ace 8. or ace jack, rather. And I'll probably just still call.
Mm-hmm.
If you're aggressive. So like there could be a time and place for it, but in general, unless the person is unreasonably aggressive, you're much better off just betting yourself. But in that guy's case, I think that was like perfect. Just folding there sort of is like seems crazy to me.
Mm-hmm.
It's too good. And to a certain degree, against like really, really good aggressive players who are playing like a ton of hands, you actually start getting close to that point where you're just like, shit, I have jacks. Those are better than the average hand. So here I go. And if it's like he shows up with the goods, I mean, I've said this before. If a bad aggressive player or just any very, very, very aggressive player gets a good hand against you, they're likely to make money.
Yeah.
So we're not going to be able to avoid losing big pots to aggressive players because that's part of it. Now the benefit on the other hand is that we're also going to win big pots against them.
Mhm.
That part's easy to forget. We're like, when we win, it's expected. When we lose, we did something wrong.
Yeah.
But really, they're like all, two sides of the same coin. You're gonna lose to an aggressive guy who picks up a hand. But like the fact that he's aggressive means he doesn't have a hand that often.
Mhm.
That makes sense.
Yeah, for sure.
And I'm ignoring nits in this conversation also because nits are just worth ignoring. Because I literally don't even consider them to be people. They're just sitting. They're taking up a seat at the table. I don't mind that. They prevent another good player from sitting down.
What's really annoying is when you are hounding on somebody, you keep 3-betting them, they keep folding, or you keep raise c-betting and they keep folding, and then they spaz out on the nit when the nit is only playing a huge hand. And they're like,
sure, but that's the purpose of being a nit. Now here's the thing though, the nit has to have the stars align for that to happen. It definitely does. It does happen, but they need for you to drive the fish crazy, then for them to pick up a big hand right before you do. Keep in mind that you're playing like half of hands and they're playing like one hand an hour, right? So they need to beat you on the race, which is like very hard because we're very fast, and then they also need to time it out right with the fish. So the fish also, that's like when he wants to spaz. It's like, it happens from time to time. But, in general, like the guy's just sitting there.
yeah.
I have a really good friend who's actually he played like a lot of 4-ring mid-stakes online. And, I always make fun of him because it's like, his background as being like a 4-ring mid-stakes guy just makes him a huge nit.
Mhm.
And so I try to talk him into playing looser and he just, he isn't interested in it. And by the way, he crushes live games. He goes to Vegas and makes a ton of money in those live games. But the truth is that I sort of from a theory point of view, we're trying to be the best, and just being that tight loses value.
Mhm.
It's easier if we don't have a lot of skill. If we're sort of content, just with a grind. Yeah, it's easier knit up, sure. But most people who are playing poker, who are Deuces Crack members or whatever, they have big dreams. They want to be the best they can be. They want to be challenging, the best players. And the way you do that is you get aggro.
Mm-hmm.
You get loose. You put on some Krantz videos, or you talk about what Cole South does, because Cole South's like the guy who made this happen. He's like, hey, if I'm better than you, I can play 80% of my hands. It's like, okay, well he could, so maybe I can too, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And the other thing I want to stress too, when we're talking about the Suns being crazy, is you probably learned this, but imitation is really difficult.
Yeah.
Like, we've had a chance to talk poker. You've seen me play. Like, it's difficult to play the same way as somebody else. It's a gradual process.
Yeah.
So you always have to be careful when you see people. There's a thread that I got linked to in 2+2 where someone was saying, they had posted some video where the moral of the video was, this is a great spot to like check raise, bluff the river, turn your hand to a bluff the river at micros. And like, my thought was like, even if that's true, this is probably a terrible thing to show people. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, 5-6 suited on the bottom left there should be an auto call in position. These are things that like should be, easily solved, for David. These are things that should be solved just by watching watching some of like the earlier coaching Kristy videos, watching some of the coaching tree videos. Just like when you have like a hand like 5-6 suited on the button, especially when there's fish in the blinds, like these are things that we can use with equity. And if you say, well, I have to fold so much, well then don't fold so much.
Mm-hmm.
You never have to fold so much. So when the board comes down, ace, 7, deuce, and the guy bets, and you're like, I have to fold, you could raise there. That would be okay.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? The only reason why we can't raise is if our opponent calls us too often. But oftentimes on those boards, people say, oh, we have to have equity. You don't have to have equity. It just helps when you get called.
Yeah.
But if if you never get called, or if you rarely get called, it's not bad. And then you might say on that ace-7 deuce board, you might say, well, there might be a diamond, and then you're like, oh, well, now I have backdoor straight and flush draws.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, okay, well, call those together, and a backdoor flush draw is worth an out and a half, and a backdoor straight draw is worth an out. So you're bluffing with like 2 outs, right?
Yeah.
So that's not so bad. Like, it's not great, but it's not so bad. Now so this is, again, not imitation. Don't imitate. Just think about it though, because the only reason why we sort of stress equity is because we expect to be called. But in some cases, we never expect to be called, so we don't need equity.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, we would never see like our heroes like Tom Dwan making these epic bluffs.
Mm-hmm.
Where he has no equity whatsoever, and yet he puts all the chips in and makes these people make these crazy folds. And it's like this: if you're never being called, you don't need equity. If you think you're going to be called, you need equity. You can figure out pretty quickly if you think you're likely to be called or not.
Yeah.
A turn 2 barrel, that's pretty likely to be called most of the time. Like a flop raise on an ace high dry board, maybe not so much. Especially because, when people are out of position, they tend to re-raise rather than call. Which, again, just, is fine.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Looks like we have, like, about 5 or 10 more minutes. Have there been any poker problems, issues that you've seen that you have been difficult or interesting for you?
Yeah, a little bit. Well, actually, I was gonna ask you if you'd ever, had issues with confidence or anything, because like things had been going really well, the last time I talked to you about playing live, and then I talked to you about a couple spots, and it seems like in the last couple of weeks, every big pot I play, I'm like losing, and a couple of them, I'm like, I feel like I kind of ran bad, but and so that's, why I kind of said I feel like live, it's when you lose that huge pot, it's
sure.
Like,
it's depressing. It's very depressing.
Yeah. And also I haven't, at working, I don't have like a ton of time to play. Like actually hardly at all. I've played probably like 3 times in the last.
Well, this is the busiest time of the year for
yeah, but it's like the best time of year to play. Which is really sad at the same time. And also, playing a different style than I used to play live is hard, and I'm talking a lot with Andrew, my husband. What weird to say now, husband, but and also cool. My Swedish friend, and they play so different than I do, or had before. But obviously, I know, like we were talking about, that playing more aggressive, more hands, much more aggro is just better. But I'm having a hard time, I guess, just exactly like imitating the way you and they play, because even though I got super comfortable playing like aggro online, it's different for me live. Also because it's hard for me to understand my own table image, being a girl and being aggressive. So it's really hard for me to. It's just.
Well, so let me answer these one at a time.
Okay, sorry. That's a lot.
First, that's fine. First and foremost, I've ever had problems like with confidence. Oh yeah, I went for an entire year without winning a pot. That was tough. The other thing is that when you play loosely, especially when you play loosely live, you're asking for it. Mm-hmm. You're putting a lot of money in the pot with like weakish hands, exploiting a lot of like small edges, and you're in a very short-term environment, right? It takes a long time to get to the long run when you're playing live. So your swings are going to be huge, but your win rate's going to be, your win rate will be good, but your hourly will be like probably, the same or maybe a little bit worse than it was online, right? So what you just have to do is you have to realize that you're asking for it. So you say, I know that if by playing loose, I'm going to make the most money. I also know that by playing loose, I'm going to have like a more difficult route to making the money, right? But here's the thing. If nothing will take you up to that next level, like being loose and going on a heater, being tight and going on a heater is not that eventful.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the only question is like, how often am I getting dealt aces now?
Mm-hmm.
Like, because that's what you're waiting for. But being a losing going on a heater, like people ask me how I moved up limits so quickly. Well, to be honest, it was like I was playing loosely, and then 1 month I won every pot, and I also played every pot. So like I made like 100 buy-ins that month, and then I was cool. Krantz had a graph one time where he went from he was like in Cabo on vacation for like a week and a half, and in that week and a half he made like 120 buy-ins at 510.
Wow.
And he's just crazy, like insanely loose, insanely whatever. But so you sort of have to suffer through the bad to enjoy the good. And this you see these sort of guys who are the standouts who excel at these things. Another guy I would like to mention is this guy is T. Corbin, who's been around forever. Corbin plays super loose and literally has busted his account no less than 10 times. For sure. He keeps on going up to nosebleeds and then getting crushed at nosebleeds, and now he actually is just at nosebleeds.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
He got over it. He sort of dealt with it. So I would say this. Understand that when you're pressing the small edges, this is something that can happen. The point that you want to get at is where you are you're never confused by what's happening. You're just bummed out by it.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you're like, okay, I knew this was a possibility. I expected that there's a chance he could show up with this here, and he did, and that sucks, and I lost. That's okay. What's not good is when you're making a lot of things where it's like, oh, I don't really know what he could have, or I don't know what I'm doing or anything. And then, those are things that are scary because those are things that you might not come out of. But if you understand what's going on and you're usually right,
mm-hmm.
if you're like, oh, I'm moving in here because he either has aces or he's bluffing, and he has aces, and you're like, damn it, you didn't do it bad. You did it fine.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's very challenging to take, like Tommy Angelo says, to take pride in the good decision and not the result.
Yeah.
But the more the game is about, the more it's about being good, the more it's about like making the right choices to you, the easier that will be.
Mm-hmm.
I used to be a crazy tilt monster. for sure. And it's easy when you're playing a ton of hands and you start justifying opening things that are like terrible that you can't, like, I have like 7-4 offsuit under the gun. Like, there's a fish in the blinds. Let's do it. Like, it's not, it's not like, it's easy to make it worse on yourself.
Mm-hmm.
But at a certain point, actually it was when I was on that, when I started shoving these things and I was like down 40 buy-ins. I was on 40 buy-ins in like a week and a half. It was sick. In EV, not just like in losses, like in EV. I was 40 buy-ins under EV. And I remember thinking that I decided I was going to turn into a game. I was like, I wonder how far under EV I can go. So every time I got sucked out on, I was like, I viewed it as like a small victory because like I was like a little bit further under EV, and that was like part of the game. Like I wanted to see how far under EV I could get. The last thing I want to say is about live. They say that like 1020 live has the swings of 1020 online, but has the win rate of 2-4 online.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
So basically, the higher you play, no matter how you play online, or live rather, you're not going to have a great opportunity to recover money.
Mm-hmm.
So if you lose it, like you can't like stick around and grind out a session. It's actually kind of a good thing because that's unhealthy to do anyway. What I would just say though is that the tables in general will be just much easier to win at.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yes, you may have losing sessions, you may run bad, and that run bad may last for a while, but the thing that contributes most to variance is your skill advantage.
Yeah.
So, if you're much better than them, it's very hard to stay running bad for long.
Yeah.
If they're about as good as you could run bad for ages.
Yeah.
Which is my experience. I was playing 10-20 or 25-50 against players who were very good.
Mm-hmm.
And if the edges are small, you could run bad for a year. More even. But if the edges are large, which they are in live, like you just have to be like, this is part of the plan.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah.
I bet 3 streets with aces, you check call down when you turn 2 pair with 5-4 offsuit and check call down. It's like these things happen. It's part of the plan. you kind of sigh and laugh and then like, send a text message with a lot of LOL and OMGs in it to someone, and then like you just go about your business.
Yeah. No, I do. I do feel that way when I'm like, whenever I sit in a live game, I'm like, I see so many bad things that people are doing. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's so bad. What are you doing? But then, I like chip up. I'm like up like a few hundred, and I'm like, boom, stacked.
Well, just know that it goes both ways.
Yeah, no, I know.
It goes, and then when it's good, you'll forget right about it. When you go on like a 10K heater at 2.5 live, and you're like, you'll just forget all about all of this.
Yeah, no, I know.
You'll be like, oh my god, poker is so easy, and I don't even have to do anything. It's so easy, and it's it's just the way it is. You just have to hang out because it always does turn around.
Yeah, it's just really annoying when it's like, I don't know, it's just annoying, right?
It's true. I trust me, we've all been there. Okay. But that said, that's gonna do it for this week. We did get a good chance to talk about some theory stuff about when you want to check call against someone when they're aggressive, 3-betting versus fish versus against regs and a lot of things like that. And then also sort of this idea we're introducing of street projection of what are we thinking they're going to do on the river, so should we call or raise on the turn? And so these are things to think about as we move on till next time. But I want to say thank you guys, thank you Kristy, thank you Fresh David for the video. And hopefully you guys have enjoyed it. We'll see you guys soon. This has been Andrew Beluga Whale Sideman with Kristy Arnett, only here at deucescrack.com. See you guys.
Bye.
Bye.